Right. Those are the words. The recording in progress. All right. So there are two things I'd like to do today, if that's okay. Number one is we should really mention Rosh Hashanah. Not that the rabbi needs a caveat or an excuse for that. Number one. And number two, yeah, exactly. Number two is let us actually start what we're supposed to be doing, which is the topic of the Jewish people. Okay. So I'm going to try and somehow enmesh them if we can, but let's see. Even if we can't, let's see how we go. All right. So I think we start as follows. Um, there's an interesting, I'd call them the Jewish English bus collision, whereby English buses back in the day before you used to actually track the timetables, you would wait for ages for a bus, and then two or three would come at once, right? And there was certain science for that, by the way, because if the routes were somewhat similar, or if one got stuck in traffic, then one would pick up a lot of people, and that would slow the first one down, and by the time the second one got to the bus stop, there'd be no one there. Right. So, your two buses basically came at once, sometimes three. Um, in Israel, probably four or five, and they all feel they have right of way. Anyway, so you have now it's interesting, you have that Jewishly as well, of course, because our last major festival was Shavuos,
Sure.
basically. Yeah, Shavuot, which 6 months ago nearly. And then you kind of waiting, and then you have now three in a row, four according to some. Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, and Simchat Torah. Four in a row. It is interesting actually. There is a medrash that says that at one point the plan was to actually have each of them occupying a different month. So bear with me. Shavuos would have been Sivan, and it is. Rosh Hashanah would have been Tammuz, believe it or not. Yom Kippur would have been the following month, which is Av, good. Yom Kippur would have been Elul, and then Sukkot, I guess, would have been Tishrei. Is that right?
No,
Yeah.
you said
Start again.
start
Rosh
again. Yeah,
Hashanah would have been Tammuz.
yeah.
Yom Kippur would have been
Then
Av.
typically of
Sukkot,
Sukkot.
sorry, Sukkot would have been Elul, and then Shmini Atzeres and Chassidut would have been Tishrei.
Yep.
Right?
Okay.
What happened? We sinned with the golden calf. All of that was taken away. We had kind of 3 months reverse rebate, or inverse rebate, where we got all festivals taken away, and they were given to us in the month of Tishrei. That's what the Medrash says. Interesting,
Yeah.
right? Hence the pile
Hmm.
up of a million meals and beyond. Well, I guess apart from Yom Kippur, but yeah, hence the festival pile up when it comes to Tishrei, right? But
And it's made a right mess of my work schedules.
yeah, like everyone this year, actually forgot to spotlight myself.
Mm,
Yeah. And everyone this year, to be honest, is
Yeah.
all working people this year are, let's put it like this, they don't have many days off.
mm.
Yeah.
Although next year,
Big juggle.
next year is the other way around.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's Shabbos Sunday, nearly everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
There you are. So it's you have to pay the price this year, and next year you get refunded. Okay, anyway, so I guess the first place I'd like to start on this is okay, we sinned with the golden calf. We had festivals taken away, then paid back. That shows that something went wrong, and there's some form of way of fixing that. I want to just explore that in a second, right? Um, uh, let's do this on one level, which is as follows. What the sin of the golden calf was a failure, I'd call it, to look reality in the face and experience it for what it was. Meaning, at Matan Torah, the Jews basically turned their backs. Now, different Jews on different levels, it's true, and not everyone, but nevertheless, those who worship the golden calf, they were looking, the experience was too much. And if you've got a bright light, you can either somehow face it or put the glasses on, right? Sunglasses, or you can turn away. Right? So the Jewish people turned away to the nth degree and served the golden calf. Now, why did they turn away? It's very important because they couldn't internalize reality as it was. In other words, for some of them, a whatever Matan Torah was supposed to give them in terms of connection and relationship with Hashem, they couldn't hack it. They just couldn't. Internally, they found no place for that. Again, how and why, whatever. And therefore they turned away. Their opt out, if you like, was the golden calf. So Hashem said, okay, I see what's happened here is you're not ready for like a gradiated process. And as you're not ready to take something huge and slowly build on it, bit by bit. You're not ready because you turn your back. In other words, plan A would have been massive inspiration, huge light, then you internalize it, you work on it, and then slowly you express that. That would have been the one festival a month plan. Yeah, but it didn't work out. didn't work out at all because we said we don't want that, right? So Hashem said, okay, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have several months without anything, right? Because you can't take the big inspiration gradually, right? And then I'm going to have to give it you in one massive dose. In other words, I'm going to have to give it to you in a way you can't possibly turn away. Now, even then, Hashem does it carefully, meaning it's not the, all in one day dose that was the giving of the Torah, but it's spread out over the course of the month. You've got more or less, well, not fully equidistant, but you've got, over the course of that month, as all employers of Jewish people know, you've got various festivals that are straddling that month. Okay.
Mm.
Then you've got your month off, which is Cheshvan. Fantastic weather for it too. Now, also what that means is that there has to be a process, meaning for Hashem to take them away and say, I'm giving it to you in 1 month, and them not to be related to each other at all would be odd, right? They have to be related to each other in some way. This process of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot, various other proofs that they're related to each other. The Rambam records them all in one set of halachas, and the Perek of Tehillim L'David Hashem Ori, we say each night from the beginning of Elul all the way until the end of Simchat Torah. I mean, there's something going on that Rosh Hashanah speaks to Yom Kippur speaks to Sukkot, and they all kind of coalesce or create one form of process, right? Now, we have to work out what that is. It's funny. Sometimes I found growing up, I found two contradictory, albeit both wrong interpretations of the Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur Sukkot process, right? One was, let's just get through them one by one. In other words, those machzorim seem to get bigger and bigger. And like the Rosh Hashanah one, you're like, okay, I'm not going to be in shul all day. There's going to be a meal at some point, and like it's fine. My personal Amid was quite long, but the repetition's all right, and I could always the chauffeur's coming every few minutes, like that, I can handle that, right? And then Yom Kippur, then you get out the Yom Kippur machzah, and you're like, oh my goodness, this is huge. No wonder they're in shul all day. All right, this is like really big, yeah. And you look at the and that you kind of look at your own Amida, and you think, well, actually, it's not that big. It's depending on how many sins I've done, right? And then you're looking at repetition, you're like, oh my goodness, this really is big, yeah. Then at the end of Yom Kippur, like, fine, okay, we're good, fine, we're moving to Sukkot. By the way, there is an old custom to start building your sukkah straight after Yom Kippur. Some do it beforehand, you can, but there's a custom to start Yom Kippur. In Israel, they treat that very, very seriously at the expense of others' sleep. Because after Yom Kippur, they are busy knocking away, and I can tell you, they eat their meals, they seem to take a break, and then just as you're going to sleep, your neighbors say, right, sukkah time. Right, so they've got the process bang on, nailed, as they say. But that was my first experience, right? And by the way, then when you get to Sukkot, you're thinking, well, Sukkot, it's fun, etc. How big can the machzor be already? Then you get the machzor off the shelf. It's the biggest one. It's the biggest one. Right, 1,000 and something
You got
pages.
9 days of it.
You go, yeah, but some of that it's not like it's 9 sections for 9 days. You're kind of repeating two or three. Right? It's just
Yeah.
gigantic, massive, big, and anyway. So that's one way of kind of relating to it, taking it day by day, which is probably not right, right? The other one is interesting, is to say, right, I'm totally focused on the day. Rosh Hashanah, I'm focused on the day. Yom Kippur, I'm focused on the day. Sukkot, I'm focused on the day, which is all true. Then you forget the linking parts. In other words, it's a little bit like a midfielder saying, right, I'm just going to focus on the middle of the park here. Right? And as that's my area. Yeah. When it goes towards defense, not getting involved. When it goes towards the strikers, not getting involved. I'm just going to kind of focus on my middle area. It doesn't, it doesn't work because if you're part of a team or a process, then it doesn't, it doesn't work. So the question is, what exactly is this process? What is this Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot? Kind of how does that connect? What's kind of the combined message that we're supposed to get from that? Nice question.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Starter
Now,
question for 10, as
now
they
you can
would say.
answer it.
Pardon?
Now you can answer it.
Well, I'm throwing, firstly, I'll throw out to the crowd. Go on. Werner, am I hearing something? No.
No, I just said it was a lovely question.
Ah, good. Okay, fine. Great. Okay, thank you. I think it's a question. It's a good question because it's a real question. And it's this is how we experience a question. So I'll tell you two ideas. I think are both powerful, albeit somewhat connected, um, which is the following. Why they're both personal development ideas, so we'll go them one by one. Idea number one is as follows. I heard this once from Rabbi Noach Orlowek, who was an educator in Jerusalem. It was fantastic. It has real command of some classic Torah sources and a huge command of human psychology, without admittedly ever having studied it himself. He's one of those people, kind of intuitive understanding of everything. Anyway, so he says as follows. He says, Rosh Hashanah is realizing that there is a bigger mission out there. Right? In other words, in Rosh Hashanah, we don't really talk about ourselves nearly ever. I mean, Rosh Hashanah is not about sin, right? There's none of this. You can't see me, none of that. Yeah, on Rosh Hashanah. We don't do that, you know. Even Sfardim, by the way, they take out the line in Avinu Malkeinu saying Chatanu lefanacha, we've sinned. Yeah. Rosh Hashanah, we mention ourselves remarkably little on Rosh Hashanah. A lot of it is just talking about Hashem. And Hashem is a model for history and destiny and future and plans and sequence. You know, it's all of that. Yeah, very little about ourselves. So Rosh Hashanah is realizing that there is a mission and a purpose. We'll do that when we talk about the Jewish people soon. Yeah. Yom Kippur is realizing that you can be part of that mission and purpose. Right? If I can just take that back to we call it our generation, despite the varying ages of people here. Um, like this, I'd say there are two reasons that people are sometimes demotivated. You know, I'll put it more extreme. Let me put it more extreme. They they used to say like this, that the reason why people left the fold 2 generations ago or 3 generations ago was because they idealistically got into something else. Right? In other words, you know, you had people who left the Jewish fold because they were idealistically communist. Like that was an ideal, right? You had people who left the Jewish fold because they followed any other given ideology, right? Yeah, but they really they absolutely put their, as they would say, kishkas into all these other ideologies, yeah, and they really went for it. In other words, they had a Jewish belief, and then they replaced that with something like another belief system. And nowadays, they don't have any of that. Nowadays, when people when people drop out or when people leave the fold, they don't do it for often for ideological reasons. They just do it. Like, why not? Apathy. Do you know what I mean? It's not like
Mm.
take an ideological verb and moved it somewhere else. It's just an absence, right? So there are two reasons why people are demotivated. Yeah. People are either demotivated because they see no bigger mission, right? It's just life as it is, nothing more. Or people are demotivated because they see a mission, they just feel they've got no part of that mission. What am I to do with that? What can I contribute to that? Why should I be part of that? Either I'm not capable of doing that, or it doesn't speak, it doesn't work for me. And as you've got
Yeah.
me like, go on, sorry.
No, I was going to say it's a case of it doesn't float my boat, ergo I'll get rid of it.
Yeah, I'll jump ship and go on another boat.
Yeah.
Yeah, or it will go on another boat. Yeah, 100%. Right. So you've got these two. There's the objective reality of bigger purpose and mission, but that doesn't work if it doesn't connect to me.
Mm.
Yeah. I think if you don't mind the classic example in shul, and I had this when I was in Stanmore a little bit, and with all good intentions. But you had people who, you'd say sometimes you'd had a slightly younger crowd sometimes who were coming Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, or the children of the older crowd, right? And now and again, they, you know, they'd set foot into the main shul from the children's service, bring their kid, and the invariable response of some, not all, of the old folk when a kid was brought into shul was the ethereal Jewish word. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, who said that?
I did.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, shush.
Yeah.
Shh.
Good.
Yeah, exactly. Shush. Yeah. So at one
And
point,
actually, if you don't welcome the children in, they never know what it's about. So as
yeah,
they get older, they still don't connect with it.
right. So that
Okay.
was what. Yeah. So that was actually one young lady, bless her,
Mm.
kind of said I can't remember if she came up to me or she sent me an email. I actually can't remember now. Kind of very upset, saying like, this is we're trying, right?
Mm.
You know, shush is, but you know, you can't shush us. We just don't know what we're supposed to do here. Right? In other words, you have this sense of there is something out there, like, you know, but if it doesn't connect, you can't shush them into connecting. Right? What are you going to do? Shush. Just understand the words. Shush. But I don't understand the words, right? But I don't know what you know. Then what's the shusher going to say? Neither do I. But shush. you know. But I'm not going to connect it if I don't understand it. Yeah, but shush. Right? So shush isn't the answer to major theological issues, unfortunately. So again, there's this certain sense of I've got mission, but if I'm not connecting to it, then it's not speaking to me. Yeah, we call that objective and subjective connections. Those simple two words. Once you have those in place, meaning you've got your objective, there is something there, and I understand it, and then it actually speaks to me, then you can have Sukkot. What does that mean? So Sukkot is the festival of Simcha. It's the epicenter of celebrating purpose and cause and stability and solidity, and ironically in a shack which is temporary because Hashem is the cause of stability, not your houses. It's a sense of I've got mission, I'm now locked into it because I've decided to, sign up to it. And then I've got Simcha, I've got purpose, I've got happiness, I've got anyone, and I don't mean to bring this down a notch, anyone who's either gone on a diet or trained for a marathon will, I know it sounds funny, will instinctively see these three elements. I'm not comparing a diet to shul, on the contrary, uh, but depending on the level of kiddush. But there's this sense of long-term kind of there, and I want this, and then there's okay, I can connect to that. That's your Yom Kippur moment. I remove all my sins, and I'm talking a lot about me, to be honest, on Yom Kippur. And then there's that joy of actually, that's I'm part of this bigger process. I can do this. Now, for people on a diet like me, that may last a day, but at least there was a sense of, I can connect to that, being part of a bigger picture. That's one element. It's quite important. The other element of the sequence is, I guess you could call it a journey from Emunah to Hakaras Hatov, and I'll try and play that out. Basically, Rosh Hashanah is the epicenter of Emunah. The basic faith in Hashem, which doesn't just mean, as we once discovered, belief in Him. It means also belief in Him interacting in the world and that He has a purpose for the world. It's all of that. It's full emunah. It's full believing that Hashem is involved in our lives. Yeah. Once you've, I'd say, asserted that as that is kind of that's mission statement, that's reality, then on Yom Kippur, you kind of, I would say, remove the cognitive dissonance. Because once you've asserted that, okay, this is what it's supposed to be like, Rosh Hashanah is, I've got those basic philosophical tenets down, like clear, then Yom Kippur is removing anything that's not in sync with those. It makes sense. I don't know if you find this, but sometimes, even at work in Jewish organizations, I know you find this shocking. Sometimes there's not full clarity as to what everyone should be doing. Yeah, I know it would never happen anywhere else. No, so there's not 100% clarity, right? The way my mum used to work for a certain school for years, right? So she used to say, like, everyone's job title seems to be manager. Yeah, like, everyone's a manager. Yeah, so that's not true of seed, but people have responsibilities. But there's a sense of if roles are unclear, then you have then there's discord. There's lack of clarity creates discord, lack of discord, right? And that can be there could be issues in that, right? Once you have clarity in terms of what is totally acceptably true, then you can work out what's not in sync with that, right? But
Okay.
yeah, that makes sense. If you don't, you don't. You can't. If you don't know where the border is between your garden and your friend's garden, you can't shave off protruding leaves because you don't know where they should be in the first place. Right? Once you have the clarity of Rosh Hashanah, then Yom Kippur, you can say, "Oh, am I in sync or am I not in sync?" Yeah. Okay. Sukkot is acting that out. There's one thing to say it in words. If anyone has any teenagers, it's one thing to say it in words, but it's another thing entirely to be able to actually do it and act it. Right? So Sukkot is actually acting it out with Arba sitting in the Sukkot, etc. That's where we go. There are many other explanations of the process, but I like those as themes. In other words, you've got one is a theme of self-development, namely you're going from a sense of global purpose, individual purpose, and simcha as a process. And the other one is there's emuna, then you've got shaving off the things which kind of remove our emuna, or at least create cognitive dissonance, and that our actions are in sync with that. Then you've got acting that out in a way, it's the last Hebrew word in this point, in a way that is effectively an expression of gratitude, which is the combination of all, right? In other words, emuna should result in gratitude, apart from the things you ignore about God, which you remove on Yom Kippur. And that's the idea. Obviously, since they're Jewish festivals, they revolve around food or lack thereof. Yeah, don't worry, we got that down. That's okay. But nevertheless, they're all they all do that. It's actually interesting that the food has a very different relationship on each festival as well, without going there too much. Rosh Hashanah is a Yom Tov, that's food. Yom Kippur, you're removing yourself from food, you're higher than that. And Sukkot, you're redirecting food. In other words, you're eating it in a place that you've made more holy, unless it's raining and then you're back in the house again. Um, would never happen in our country. Would never happen in our country. Okay, let's share the screen to do a little bit about Jewish people because I've been rabbiting on quite a lot about Rosh Hashanah. Um, let's see if we can go here. How are we here? Oh, tell me I got it right. Oh no, it's my school file. Excuse me. Oh, everyone see the Jewish people, or at least the words, the Jewish people?
Yeah.
All right. In this section, I don't need to read my own stuff. Explore the role of Jewish people and Jewish unity. Jewish unity is great. We're going to do that soon, please God. So the questions we started off with last time, we ended off with last time. Now, one is the concept of the Jewish people racist, right? And what does it mean that we've got a role and a mission? Don't other people as well? Don't other nations as well? It's funny. Tomorrow, I've been strong-armed in a nice way to doing a visit to a Catholic school, Catholic primary school. I have no idea what I'm going to say. There's a very immature part of me that wants to teach them Am Yisrael Chai. Um, but I don't know. I don't know whether I'll be banned or featured on some ridiculous YouTube thing. Let's think. I'm not sure. But I think I'm going to bring in my shofar. I really am not sure what to tell them at all. I think it's quite a religious Catholic school. But let's see between today and tomorrow. But this is listen to this. This is from the Kuzari. It says Amar Chaver Harpeli Ma'at Ad Shavar Etzlachal B'dula Sa'am. So the Kuzari, do you remember the narrative was there's this king and the king has a dream and he calls in various different people from different religions and eventually he gets chatting with a rabbi and decides to convert. Whether the story happened or not, I don't know, but it's quite important in terms of philosophical conversations. A book I'd really, really recommend, by the way, the Kuzari. You can get it in English. He says, wait a little bit until I explain the greatness of this people. V'daili le'ed Hashem b'charam la'amal umma bein umma sa'olam. Right? You know, Hashem chose us as a nation from all others. V'chol inan elokei ala monam, and he placed his divineness, let's make up that word, on most of them until Shigi Kulam Manas Adibra, until they reach the level of prophecy. Yeah. So that's an amazing thing. And it's something we need to explore. What does it mean that God chose us? Like, where did he choose us? How did he choose us? What about others? Kind of who created that? What point in history did he choose us? I want to see all of that. But clearly there is some special relationship here, to the point that the Gemara in Brachas I've got over here says that Hashem wears tefillin. And it's not literal, the black boxes somewhere in the sky, but Hashem wears tefillin means that Hashem sings. It says actually what are in his tefillin, I should say over here. And in his tefillin is Mikam Yisrael Goech Baaretz, who's like your nation, who's like Israel, a unique nation in the world. Right? Meaning there's a uniqueness that we have. There's a special uniqueness, and Hashem celebrates that, and Hashem expresses that. Just one last thing, I can see time is ebbing and flowing. It's funny because I thought time stood still when rabbis talked. I guess not.
No, it only feels like that when you're listening to us.
Yeah, very good. Everyone agrees time shifts differently when the rabbi's speaking. Anyway, so the Meshech Chochos is a beautiful idea. We'll actually end with this. He says the Jewish people are like a good functioning relationship whereby each wants to give credit to each other. He says, for example, this is why we call the festival Pesach, but God doesn't call it Pesach. If you realize this, in the Torah, the word Pesach is referring to the Pesach Korban, not the festival. Right? We call it Pesach. In fact, the Gemara is called Masechta Pesachim that talks about Pesach. Right? Hashem doesn't call it Pesach. Hashem calls it Chag HaMatzot. In the Torah, it's called the Chag HaMatzos, right? The Festival of Matzos. Says, ask the Meshech Chochmah and the Kedushas Levi why. He says very beautifully, you know, if you're in a good relationship, you want to give credit to each other. So Hashem says, look, what did the Jewish people do? They ate matzahs. I'm going to call it after what they did. We say, hey Hashem, what did you do? You passed over the houses, so we'll call it Pesach. So the name, and there are a few examples of this in the Torah where we're each giving credit to each other. And that is the relationship. That's a good functional relationship between us and Hashem. So over the next weeks, obviously, I mean after Sukkot, what we're going to look at is some Jewish unique qualities. We're going to look at why the concept of the Jewish people is not racist, and who chose who. Did we choose Hashem? Did Hashem choose us? Look at all of that as well, please God. What remains for me to do is to wish everyone here, please God, a ksiva v'chasima tova, please, a good Rosh Hashanah, only good things, only health, only a good year. And, I'm actually going to ask this publicly. I don't know if this is a rabbi way of looking at things or it's just objectively true. I feel like before every Rosh Hashanah, the world seems to be on some form of like precipice, but you kind of can't predict the world's direction. I just kind of look back. It definitely
Certainly
feels
feels
like
like
that
that this
nowadays.
year.
Pardon?
Yeah. Certainly feels like that this year.
I know, but I feel like
And
every year I say that to people, they say it feels like that this year.
It's definitely this year.
that's how it
last,
should be.
oh, yeah.
Or
Ready.
Right.
is it because of the way we are preparing for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur and
Yeah.
everything that means? We're on a different thought plane.
Yeah, it could be like a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. I don't take that. Yeah, it could very well be. Look at it in some way and therefore it is. But I don't know if there's not a bit of reality in that. Let's put it like this. There's a lot up for grabs this year.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we spent hours discussing menus before we came online. It's
Could be
who's
anything.
cooking what and with whom.
Yeah.
Milky, meaty, could be anything.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, look, a good year, please God. So the next session we've got is we got together is not until after Sukkot. I'll remind people,
Mhm.
Yeah.
because we just no Wednesdays, no
No.
Wednesdays. Anyway,
Thank you.
Thank
please
you,
God,
and
thank
to
very
you.
much.
Wonderful,
Only good
wonderful.
things.
To all.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova, good to see
Bye.
everyone.
Bye. Thank you.